Welcome, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order of the Casco Township Planning Commission of February 21st. We'll start off on pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
Thank you, everyone. Before we begin, just like to have a moment of silence for what our state and MSU went through last week. And so if we could, just a moment of silence, please. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, our next on the agenda is the approval of minutes from January 17th. Is there any additions and or corrections to those minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 17th.
Okay. Is that a second?
I'll second that motion.
There we go. Thank you. There's a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Approval of the agenda. Is there any additions and or corrections to the agenda for this evening? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight, February the 21st.
Thank you, John. There's a second by Gina. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Communications. So do you want to do anything right now, or do you want to wait till we?
Yeah, well, I'll just give you a quick update on the park. Right now, I just talked to our park planner. We're waiting on our phase 1, phase 2. That's to build the front part of the park. We obtained passport grants to fund those. We had it out for bids to do phase 1. We only had Telto Trucking contracting put in for it, but our park planner says it's best to combine the 2 phases, and they'll save us on some costs, setup costs and stuff like that. We're waiting right now our contract from the state to kind of finalize that grant. Once it is, then we'll send out a combined bid for both phase 1, phase 2. That being said, I also applied for, we're going to be applying for Michigan Department of Resources Development Grant. That's to take the road back to the river and develop the parking areas down there and the access to the river. We also applied for a Sparks grant to pave phase 1, phase 2. We did not make the first round of the Sparks grant, but we have 2 more rounds. Hopefully we'll get chosen. And that's all I can remember off the top of my head. So
That's good. Good stuff, all right. Moving forward.
Yep, moving forward.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. The next item is discussion from the floor. And we have this labeled in such a way that we'd like to hear from our residents from Casco Township. So if you have something for the Planning Commission, please come up to the podium, give your name, with your address, and let us hear from you.
This isn't after, it's before.
Pardon me?
It's before the meeting, because I know the township board meetings usually is after.
Yeah, well, this is Planning Commission though.
Yeah.
We
So if you have something, come on up.
Okay.
It's only, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Joshua Choate, 8766 Meisner. Recently retired Army officer, returning back here to be a farmer, so now I'm here.
Great.
I understand the requirements with animals I can have on the premises based on the township. What I'm coming here to talk to you individuals today is my wife and I are going to try to set up a animal rescue on the property. So I don't know specifically what is required from me for you guys to make sure that I have everything in order to do an animal rescue, to in addition to everything I have to do through the state. Second question I have with this is, as we move into the animal rescue, which is very limited, I'm trying not to do anything with, we don't want people there as a petting zoo. It's not something I'm trying to do a business. It's something me and my wife want to set up to have a place for animals to go that if a vet clinic deems are too injured to be released to the wild, they can come over to the house. Or if somebody's gonna put down one of their pets and it's a young pet that still has plenty of life left, we have a spot for this animal to go to. We're looking more like dogs, cats, but not really dogs as much because it's tough to kennel that much. So that's my first discussion, is to find out what exactly is required for me to have an animal rescue on the property, as long as I don't violate the ordinance of how many animals I can have per square feet, acreage, all of that. Stuff like that.
Okay.
My second question with this is, because we're looking at doing animal rescue, we're gonna have animals out of the required care. I wanna find out what is required for me to have a separate structure on there where I can have like a caretaker spot, a vet tech living on the premises, but not in my household, so they have their own space. But I don't want it to be a separate address, a separate, like everything's tied into my well, everything's tied into my electricity, it's the same address. It's just a standalone structure, like a 1 to 2 bedroom with a bathroom, something to give the ability for me to have somebody stay there if I have a vet that's gotta come over and do services for the animals, or if they take care of the animals during the day and then they have to go off to their real job and at night they come back and take care of animals. Trying to find a caretaker, separate structure, and what the requirements are, and if there's anything to be done about that. And those are my 2 questions for this time.
Okay, thank you. Steve, do you want to lead us into that a little bit?
I'll attempt to, although we would prefer to receive all questions in writing so we can respond accordingly. These are questions that have to be referred to as research to the state. I don't believe the state has square footage standards for cats and dogs, animal rescues. I know they do for large wolf animals and that. Our ordinance currently does not allow a second residence on the property. So if that's what you're asking for, you have to ask the township and the planning commission to allow that. It's great to change in the ordinance. We have to look at your request. So we would want it in writing, exactly what you plan on doing with some, maybe even a sketch. And then I can respond to that in front of the planning commission, and perhaps we could also send it to our town.
Is this, to go to the communication?
That's me, but it should be directed to either the planning commission chairperson, Keith Telto, or the township supervisor, Joe Stevens.
Yeah, right here.
And I talked to you on the phone, so I'll
Yeah.
probably follow up with you since I have your email.
Sure.
Make sure everything's ready.
Yeah, now,
Exactly what you want, so we can respond.
yeah, now,
Thank you.
I'll even have, Steve's and, Keith's on it, just keep it all 3 of them.
That's just a couple of quick questions. How many acres do you have?
I've got 20 acres, sir.
20 acres?
And right now, 10 of it's cleared. I already have, it's like a makeshift farm. I bought a farm that was currently operating. Old red buildings back there used to be, Bill Crooks used to live there, everybody knows him. So it's already, 10 acres cleared. I think our biggest thing we're looking at is, I don't know how much you know about it, but FIV cats that have like FIV, they cannot be released to the wild even if they're captured, and people take them vets and they have them put down. My wife is a vet assistant right now in the vet clinic, and that's one thing she wants to focus on. So we're looking at taking existing buildings that we have or a bigger building and making modifications for it and house extra cats where they're enclosed, they have an outside area with an inside area, but it's where they're confined, but also well taken care of, to give them a longer life than just being put down, which is what's happening at 90% of vet clinics around here.
You're in a ag zone or residential or?
Ag.
In ag. Okay. How many buildings do you have on your property?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings. Chicken coop, 10 by 20 storage shed, 20 by 40 like garage, which is now like a giant chicken coop, and then I've got a 2-story barn in addition to my house.
Are you relatively away from your neighbors, so to speak, or do you have?
I've got plenty of space from the neighbors, and my house is set off 140 feet, I think, off the road, something like that, and everything's behind the house. So we've got definite dispersion from the neighbors on one side, which has a horse pen on one, and then the house in the very front of the property next to me is a distance away as well.
Will you have a euthanasia there also?
No, not on the premises. That'll be something taken care of. My wife will take it into her vet clinic if somebody has to be put down. It happens at the vet clinic itself. Someone dies of natural causes, it is what it is, but nothing will be administered to take the life of an animal on the property. Unless it's me taking out some coyotes and trying to take out the rest of the animals we have.
Well, when you get done with yours, I got another place for you. Okay, any other questions from the, buyers right now? So seeing over here.
Yeah, looking forward to working with you.
I'll formalize this in writing, I'll get it up, I'm sure you'll link me up with everybody, and we'll be fine with that. It's not an immediate solution, right now, we're still going through the process of making it an animal rescue. I just want to make sure that there was nothing you needed from me before I go through the process of the state to become an animal rescue to start with.
So it's just gonna be cats?
So she wants to focus on cats, but let's say like the local vet clinic has a raccoon that got hit by a car that needs a place to stay for a while until it's rehab enough to be out in the wild. And they ask me if I can put it in a pen. I would not tell them no unless I'm told by you that I cannot have it. That's kind of the part. We're going to focus on the cat aspect of it, but we don't want to turn anybody away that is trying to save an animal. But I know there's requirements where I can't like exceed hooved animals over a certain amount for the acreage I have, and I also don't have the storage space for something like that. So it will be smaller animals and staying within reason because I can't afford to save the world, right? So always got a big heart, but I don't have a big wallet, so I have to make sure we stay in tune with that.
We understand that one also. Well, thank you. Good luck to you, and be in touch with our township. We'll get you all the input that we can. Great. Thank you. Any other folks that would like to? Yeah.
Anthony Schwein, 9085 Madison. I just have a quick question. I know the master plan and how status change happens from
Take care of that.
besides for somebody that owns the property requesting a change, what changes the status on the plan itself? I'm not familiar with the process. I'm not part of the planning commission, so.
We can give you some, I can give you a little bit of input on that. We are somewhat waiting until we get the corridor proposal and taking obviously the planners within the township board is going to take a very hard look at that was proposed on 26 Mile. With that in mind, the process Steve will lead us through that, and Karen, and we will have our discussions and open discussions with the planning commission and see what can be.
Well, then, in order to implement a master plan process, we have to follow state law, which requires public hearings and public input. There are certain parameters that have to be addressed, residential, commercial, industrial. Three. Things like that. We call it within a 15-day review period. For citizens input. Ultimately, the responsibility of master plan is planning commission. But they also there's plenty of opportunities for the public to provide it.
That help.
A little, yeah, just 26 Mile site and everything, just go back 20 years. How does one change the status?
Change the status of it.
Yeah.
Master plan is just a goal. Master plan is just a guide. It'll say things like 26 Mile Road between this road and this road. We're anticipating it to be industrial. 26 Mile Road between this road and this road. We're on a map. We're anticipating it to remain agricultural. That's all master plan does.
by the
No,
back
absolutely
sheet
not.
on
The
there.
zoning
You
ordinance,
still have to go and ask for a change if you ever want it to be a change. That master plan really does.
just a guy,
It's a foot in the door. Right?
Well, sure, and there's a lot of thought and process, a lot of ramifications from trying to make a master plan work. You know, we are just blessed with a lot of different properties and avenues and ways to develop property in the right way. And this corridor is giving us all another chance to speak our minds. Matter of fact, this Friday, we will have a meeting, in, where's that,
East China,
East China.
10 o'clock, 10:30.
And that, I believe, Steve's going to be the final meeting. And we're gonna have a lot of information after that. How that gets distributed, I'm not sure. That's something that, you know, Joe's gonna be involved with, and we'll go accordingly. Does that make a little bit of sense?
Yeah.
Is that meeting gonna go to the public or is it gonna be closed like the last one was?
Can we have your name, please?
Oh, sorry, Nick Rager has a comment.
Okay.
48 Belford. I think that there wasn't the last meeting on the 26 mile corridor. They had it open for public discussion and then the county was like, nope, we don't want any public there because there's too many people against it. Or that, you know, have negative thoughts on turning 26 mile right into Hall Road. That's why I was just asking if it's.
It is not a public hearing.
Huh?
It is not a public hearing at this meeting. It is a presentation by the consultant to the advisory committee.
Okay.
I think the public's invited, I mean, welcome to attend, but it's not a public hearing.
And they're gonna give us their input on how they think that corridor should be developed. They're not recommendations on how that's gonna work. And it needs to be obviously reviewed by all of you, no doubt. I mean, we see what's happening in Lennox Township, you know, and it's coming our way. So we have to be very cognizant of the fact of what's going on. And, you know, one of the main concerns we all have is traffic. That intersection, at the county line, oh my gosh, in 26 miles, it's just getting, to me, it's just, I'm getting older. It's just getting worse and worse. Now we have hospitals, now we have a lot of different things. And one of the high points in my agenda is going to be really finding out what they believe would be the best design on our side of county line. And we go from there. So more to come. More to come. So we'll try and keep you involved. Please don't hesitate to call our office and we'll try and get the answers for you best that we can.
And only the landowner can submit for a change.
No.
Not for the plan. I'm just talking in general.
Zoning,
Yeah.
zoning change can be initiated by a landowner or a municipality.
Thank you. Any other questions? Did we kind of answer it? Okay, reasonable. Sir, do you have any questions?
Just listening.
Welcome.
Where are we at on the number are we on?
We are on what they call discussion from the floor number 6.
Okay. So I've owned property here for over 20 years, but I've lived at the corner of Lindsay and Palms.
Ma'am, what's your name? I recognize you, but,
Debbie
Oh.
Carbone, LIPPS-CARBONE. So since the early 60s, my family has resided at the corner there. So of course, I'm concerned about a lot of things, and I was just recently, I think I missed one meeting regarding the trucking company on Springborn as well. So where is that at, and when's that coming back around?
This is one item we can't really discuss publicly. It's still at this point.
Well, we already talked about it publicly once, why all of a sudden would it not be?
Because we're not sure where this is going to go legally, quite honestly. So if you would like to speak in general terms.
Okay, in general, I'm just not in support of having another trucking company there. I was here for the meeting when they were here, and talked about, oh, it's a great location, it's off of 94. We have to make sure people know that we're not a billboard here. The same thing with the gas station at Division and Palms. It's a brighter lights. They've been there for years.
Well,
And that one set of lights.
Yeah, I'm gonna check. I told them verbally that the lights had to be adjusted. I'm gonna be sending them a letter with the reference on that.
Yeah, because and those lights suddenly came on about 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And it was to get people off of 94. It's like everybody wants to get something off of 94. And my concern is, I live right on the corner of Lindsay and Palms in the old farmhouse. And if I'm out in my yard, we can't hear each other because of the traffic the way it is. And I wanted to question the trucking company as if any of their trucks going north or state of Canada, what's going to stop them from not taking Meisner to Palms to go to 94 this way instead of back out on 26 and hit the 26 exit to go north or, I guess, east at that point.
In general terms, for the township, any of those type of developments are reviewed by a number of agencies, obviously including this, and then it goes to the township board. So in general, you would have a chance to voice your opinion when it does come up on a public hearing. I'm not trying to be smart here.
No, I know, I'm just trying to think, what were we talking about, like last month or maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, when the trucking company was here?
That was so that we had a public hearing that evening. And we heard a lot of input from them and also from our residents. And so we are just waiting to hear from them. What their next steps maybe. We have more information.
Yeah, because that's concerning, and this is something so little, and it may not mean anything to any of you guys, but artificial lights affect the lightning bug population. Like, they can't breathe in the light, I guess, or whatever. But I don't know, again, I've been out here since 62, and the lightning bugs every year has decreased, and I was actually researching that a couple of years ago on my own. As why is there no lightning bugs anymore? And that's what it came down to, the artificial light. And that's what, then suddenly the gas station on the corner there turns their lights on even brighter. I mean, I feel sorry for people in that little blue house. I mean, I wouldn't just be sitting there doing nothing about it. But, it's things like that we're just losing. And
Well, and what I would do, obviously, is keep in touch with the township. You can always call Brenda, and Joe, or even me, and we will give you what we know.
Yeah.
But at least for right now, we're waiting to see what the next steps are going to be. Okay? Thanks for being with us tonight. Okay. All right.
Is that property for sale or no?
I don't know.
The sign's still up.
see, now that's where I was thinking, I thought he said that night, they've already purchased the land, and I thought it was kind of a cart in front of a horse thing.
But we don't
Why
know.
would you buy something?
We're not sure. And we're just gonna have to kind of wait and see what the next steps will be. Okay,
Yeah.
folks?
And also,
I thought that would be a question.
and also,
They
we're,
covered the home. And I was told 3 years ago, before Great Lakes ever came to this area, that property was sold. I think the guy that owns it, he doesn't live in the state. And he was selling it for his dad, who owned it years ago. And I think he's just doesn't have the resources or the right person to come over there and take the sign down, I think is all it amounts to.
we're advised by legal counsel until Great Lakes Trucking reapplies for either plan commission hearing or for conditional rezoning through the township board, we're not to discuss this matter. We could take questions on, but we're not really to discuss. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. The next item is a public hearing, which we have this evening. Unfinished business. We're going to have a little discussion on hoop buildings. So, we have Mr. Seuss here this evening, our building inspector. Hi, Roland, welcome. Good to see you. Roland brought some information in, and I think you gave that out, Roland?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Want me to pass it out, Roland?
Yeah, you want to? This is just something that I put together from here. Out of the cookbook there, you know, the code book and so on, but I don't know, I didn't get any of the information that you guys had here about. I guess my only concern is how it's gonna be treated if it, you know, if it continues as far as it goes. But what is the board idea about it?
Can you just kind of walk us through a little bit, Roland?
Well-
Some of your bullet points here?
I called a guy in, Ohio, or Indiana, that, put the one up over here on Eisen Road. It's a pretty nice building. They have some real nice buildings, they really do.
You're talking about Jack Phillips?
Yeah.
Jack?
Yeah. And I don't think they should get a real bad rap for some of the ones that you might see around, you know, and the guy that did the work on that is every bit as good as a coal miner. They have to follow the snow loads, they have to follow the wind loads, so on and so forth. But, those are most of the time stamped prints for, you know, anyway.
Do they have to follow the, do they have to follow the Michigan Building Code?
Yeah. Good. As far as I know.
No, from structure.
It'd be, you know, as far as, commercial, they'd go out of the Michigan building code.
Yes, that's agricultural.
Is that,
That's agricultural where he's at.
they what?
That isn't that agricultural where he was.
Yeah, but he's full permit on that. So he's not necessarily doing ag.
Did he have to?
He does hay, but I don't know what he does.
Roland, one of our questions was, how does the Michigan Building Code regulate hoop structures? Because it is kind of a gray area. You look at hoop structures of different sizes, you know, if we're talking about a 10 by 10 or a 10 by 12 that someone's parking their lawnmower in just in the winter time, does that need a building permit or no, because it's under 200 square feet? Then you get into bigger ones and, you know, do we as a township have a good process for permitting these hoop structures? I mean, because obviously the inspection schedule is gonna be different. The things that you're looking at, the type of construction is different. So we just wanna make sure that we're not being too restrictive on what could be just a temporary building so that somebody can get their classic car out of the snow, for instance.
Right. Well, when Bill Rumenap was alive and he was a supervisor here, we kind of put our heads together with something like that, anything like was under 200 square foot. We didn't mess with them. You know, we just let them go. And we didn't really have that many around here, you know, one or two maybe. And you didn't see a lot of them. And they were canvas site, and possibly in a year they're going to rip and fall apart anyways, you know. But and this is my problem right now. I mean, where do we go with this thing here? You're going to try to ban them or whatever. But I think the commercial end of it, as far as that goes, they're pretty damn nice buildings.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to bring up, as I see here in the agenda, such structures are only be permitted in the ag R1 and R2 districts. What about all of our industrial areas?
No, I thought we would do, John, is kind of walk through this building. And then we're going to have Pam give us a little more background. Sure. And then we'll see how it shapes out here.
Yeah, you know,
as you can tell, there's a lot of interesting.
This one particular guy told me, and he's the one that put the one up over here.
Yeah.
That I don't have a problem meeting snow loads. So that we can make a 80-pound snow load up north or whatever you gotta do, 25, 30 here, whatever it might be. Wind load, so we just put more hoops on, you know, but they're based on a footing type of thing, you know, they're based on piers, not just an auger type thing to hold it down.
Anchor screw or something, right. There's a difference between a professionally built building and somebody that just orders something online and
Yeah,
bolts it together.
you go up to Quality there and buy one right now, they're like 10 by 20 or 30, whatever, you know, I'd be kind of nervous about those. I mean, I don't know what the idea is gonna be on that, because eventually it falls under the building department, and I scratch my head and say, you know, this thing will only gonna hold up a year or two, how do we maintain something like that? Not only that, the neighbor next door, when it comes blowing over there or whatever it might be. Those are the problems I have, but I was really impressed with the one that he had over there, and I talked to that guy for about a half hour, and I was really impressed with the way he talked about them, and so on and so forth. Down in Indiana, there's a lot of them, and they seem to be doing well. And those canvases are supposed to be good 30 or 40 years, according to mine. I don't know if you get that much more out of steel and without at least painting it or whatever.
That guy didn't happen to, that wasn't Greystone Construction, was it?
I don't remember what the name of it was.
There's a company called Greystone Construction, they're national, their headquarters out of Texas, but they specialize in hoop buildings for, I mean, in huge ones, for municipalities, you know, 150 feet wide, 300 feet long, 22 feet tall, big hoop buildings. But, I mean, again, it's a professionally built building, spec'd and engineered and foundation correctly.
I hear sure they got one in Croswell.
What's that?
I hear sure they got one in Croswell as well, sure.
Yep.
And it's 300 feet long.
Are there any other questions for Roland on what he gave us? Anything that just pops up at you or that you wanted to, maybe questions in mind before we, okay. All right. We're gonna get back to you, Roland.
That's my question, as far as the village, you know, I know there's some around, there's some across the road from you guys, it's not what you call a pretty looking building at all, but I don't know how they did it or what they're gonna get away with or whatever.
I gotta imagine Ira Township had something to say about that building.
I would think so.
It's not like they put it up overnight and nobody noticed.
Well, that happens a lot, you know, the old saying, it's easier to ask forgiveness than
Right.
Good point.
All right, here we go. Karen, could you give us a little update, please?
Right, so this is, draft language that we've come up with, to help, clarify, hoop buildings, for Casco Township. So we've drafted the definition, hoop building / hoop house / fabric building. An accessory building made of but not limited to piping covered with flexible material does not include air. And then we drafted language to be a part of the accessory buildings ordinance. We put it in its own section, which is labeled section I. Hoop buildings are subject to the following provisions. Such structures are only permitted in the A, R1, and R2 districts. Now, obviously, we can modify this and change this according to the direction the planning commission would like to go with. It's built in accordance to manufacturer recommendations, not used to store solvents, gases, or other chemicals or flammable materials. Such structures are detached structures and subject to the setback requirements of detached structural. Sorry, I'm having a hard time making it. Setbacks required of detached structures in accordance with the ordinance. Hoop buildings 200 square feet and under shall not require a building permit, and coverings must be maintained and intact.
Very simple suggestion. I don't know what we're doing next.
But we had talked last week, or last month rather, about doing some research at the other townships, were you able to gather, I mean, is any of this like?
To be honest, most of the ordinance language I'm finding about food building in Michigan, for most places in the Midwest, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, Michigan townships, a lot of townships have actually repealed any specific language for food buildings. I don't know if they thought it was too restrictive and it's just falling under accessory structures. I know, Marshall, they had a whole food building ordinance and that got repealed recently. I think maybe last year or so. Several other West Michigan towns have repealed them. So that's what I found.
That's interesting to know.
Okay. Questions, other questions of Karen or Steve? Just a couple of answer questions that I've got. Karen, just going back to I again. Is built according to manufacturer recommendations, which makes me a little concerned. And what I was wondering if we could add that it had to relate, whatever the word may be, to all township building codes, something to that respect. Does that kind of make sense to you folks? A little bit? Roland? You're already kind of doing it.
Yeah, we generally follow pretty much the code book. There might be a few other things, sometimes pitch the roof, change it over here. Very little, you know.
Right. This gives you, all of us, a little more
Yeah.
teeth in the matter, if you will. If we do get into a problem with them. And, what are the planner's thoughts as far as keeping this within the accessory building section? Or maybe Steve, Karen, maybe you should touch on that for a moment. I mean, it makes sense to me.
Well, they are accessory buildings.
I mean, there's no two ways
So
about
it should be in
it.
there, yeah.
This is the only place it could be.
And you don't want to separate it and give it its own section. It's part of another type of accessory. You're just clarifying some additional standards, that type of accessory.
Roland, does this, do those plans have to be reviewed by the fire marshal?
Well, they do have that stuff that's fireproof, the canvas and so on. I mean, if it's a commercial job, I don't know about the others. Not here, no.
So if we were to add something again, all
That's a possibility. You know.
township codes that relate to building.
All applicable codes are.
There we go, thanks. Jay, what do you think?
What they call it, the mechanical code. Or not, you know, the code. Okay. You probably. You gotta follow that guideline.
Yeah.
The size of it, 200 feet. I can buy a thing from Casco, 12 by 20 that holds a car. That's 240 feet. So I can buy a thing from Casco, have to go get a zoning permit.
That's right.
And would it have to be done, would that then have to go on a foundation?
Then I think that's restricted.
Well,
I don't like that.
either an anchor or whatever it may be, but I mean, I guess that was one of my questions. I mean, you know, like standard out here, you know, a lot of people go with a 30 by 40. If they go with a 30 by 40 foot poop building, you know, I guess we'd be looking at probably some kind of footing for it, piers or whatever. That could, you know, I'm thinking of the bigger stuff, not so much that in between thing, but that the regular residential guy might put up this or put a boat in, whatever.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I agree. Here's where I think you start to run into some problems with the bigger stuff is, for instance, there's a company out there that manufactures these buildings, 40 by 60, 40 by 80, that are specifically designed to sit on top of concrete bin block. And you just use concrete anchor bolts to anchor the end, you know, a base plate at the bottom of each hoop, essentially. So, I mean,
Well,
if you follow the manufacturer's recommendations or guidelines as to how to install and assemble and erect this thing, it's not going to be on a footing. It's not going to be on a pier. It's going to be bolted to a concrete block.
Well, I've probably done 5 or 6 of them here, some over in Columbus Township. I make it put footings on, and I haven't had a problem yet, so. And that's just one right down the road here. A lot of
Like
stuff
that
from
one,
California.
that one in Ira Township, I mean, that's another good example, that's sitting on top of shipping containers, there's no footing under that.
It's all right, I don't know.
The one at MGM, I mean, you can see
There
it.
may be out there,
Yeah,
maybe
it's designed
specifically
for that, it comes,
fan to shipping.
comes with brackets that mount
And
to
there's other
the,
ones that are made just to be posted into the ground.
And
That's
that's-
why,
And that's my major
is
concern.
it recommendations of the manufacturer, or is it like on a house setting, does it depend on the size?
Because it makes it more flexible, move together.
Yeah,
exactly. Take it down, move your bin block, put it back up.
I'm looking for on these buildings, whatever they might be, that there is some longevity to it. That it's not something where the canvas is gonna blow off in a year, and if they can kind of guarantee that canvas is gonna be on there, or whatever it is, for 30 years without deteriorating or whatever. I guess that's where I stand, but I mean, I don't know what you figure we can do.
Do we need something more in the ordinance if we add this in as far as structural integrity?
Almost all that code book is, always refers back to manufacturer installation instructions.
Every time. It's a liability off the state,
Yeah,
put it on the.
it's a liability factor there.
Right.
I guess I'm looking, Jerry, is there a practical way that we could add something in? If the building inspector thought there was a structural issue, Steve, is there something we can do with that? Or is it getting overbearing?
Well, I mean, you could ask that in everything. You could put an ordinance in there that says every house has to have that. It's presumed. If it needs a building permit, or if it doesn't need, it has to meet current standards.
Yeah, but the building, Michigan building code, I don't know, does it have specifications on pier support?
Sometimes it does, but I mean, depending on what it is, I mean, as far as I know, yeah. I mean, it should have at least piers,
And these piers let down.
Well, they're even talking about, barnuminium that are running a rat wall in between the poles. I ain't got that down pat yet either, But when you're in that, that's trying to figure out what you're gonna do with this.
Nick, I normally don't do this, but you've got something. I want you to do that.
It's just to make a differentiation between the ones that we're talking about and the ones that we're talking about. The ones that you can buy at Costco, they're not even, I mean, they're recommended to be taken down, but they're not recommended to last more than a couple of years. Their tarps aren't. And there's a difference between those ones that you put 4 screws, you put down a piece of ply or 2x6, anchor them to it, and 4 screws, anchor bolts to hold them to the ground. That $240 shed is way different than one that comes in a semi and gets put up a crane. I mean, there's a clear definition
and there's a big.
between one and the other. I mean, you're looking at $10, $15, $20, $30,000, $250. Like,
And there's a big group in the middle. Like, there's the Ira Township, there's $100,000 hoop structure to
Right.
store my salt or my commodities in. Then there's I'm gonna put my RV in this one that I bought for Tractor Supply. And then there's your 30 by 60 farm buildings that I'm gonna put a bunch of my tractors in, I'm gonna put a bunch of my stuff in. And in 5 years, if I put that crop here, I'm gonna pick that up and I'm gonna put it in this field because I'm now gonna put corn in this field. And there's that in between. Now, those are getting permitted from the county, but they still have to fall by. So do you want a foundation under those? I don't know how that works.
it's like if I go buy a 12 by 24, put my boat and my lawnmower and keep all my stuff covered for the winter. Now I gotta come and put a 4-foot foundation in.
What if I buy
For
50 by 18?
it's gonna fall
So
apart.
that's what,
Yeah,
That's
where's
what
the
Jim's
size
talking-
change? What about 30 by 50 on a farm?
where does it start, where does it stop, what makes common sense, what does?
Well, absolutely.
If you can put them up with a ladder and if two 6-foot tall guys in an 8-foot ladder can put it up in 2 or 3 hours, that is a temporary structure. If you have to bring in equipment and you're pouring concrete or bringing in concrete blocks, there's 2 separate, there's 2 separate lines there.
That's it. Steve, is that something we could do, separate the two buildings? A temporary being, I think, without even putting in, Jim, to your point, if you go and our ordinance is 200 square feet. You go to the store and you get them, it's 240.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see Joe on getting permit.
Right.
With extra 15, now, does that make any sense?
He tells me, no, the foundation shed.
And he tells you, go.
It's gonna last for
Yeah.
years.
So is there a distinction that we can make between temporary and permanent?
Yeah, that would be a good answer. Could always come up with that language, we have to read through. But then we're gonna get into what's temporary, 6 months is to 3 months.
Well, if we're gonna do this, you're right, and we have to have a definition of what temporary is. Right? And what is right. That might be the route to go. I'm struggling like everyone else. And problem is I agree. So
It's a situation, the longevity, I mean,
Those over-the-counter ones probably didn't exist when they came up with the 200 foot, right?
but, again, we don't want people running into the township, and they will. To try and do the right thing.
Yeah. Permits cost more than the shed.
See, Karen, why don't we, or planners, why don't we do a little more research on this? And maybe what we could do is separate the temporary from the permanent. What do you think, John? Sue, that make any sense, James? Okay.
And I think if we're going back to the drawing board, we need to look at bullet A. I think there's a high demand for these types of structures in the industrial district. Here you go up.
Let's start small. Let's go burn up the industrial district, set some code for that, and then leave the residential people alone for a couple of years, and we'll come back and revisit the residential.
Industrial district is where you're gonna be getting your large, you're not gonna get them.
Set some standards for the commercial industrial. Leave the residential alone, we'll just revisit residential.
Well, and we can do that if we, in the temporary, we do the division.
I set something up now for commercial industrial, so you can hold wolves out there. I don't think no one's burning bridges residential. We can get them all mad at us now, commercial and industrial. Leave the residential people alone, we'll revisit in a couple of years. I don't see too many residential people. Casco, I think you're more worried about the big guys. The John down there. Anybody that's big.
What are we at?
I can do this too.
Okay,
So let's bring that out a little bit.
yeah, we've gone from regulating group buildings
Yeah.
to adding temporary buildings, to now forgetting about regulating group buildings in the ag district, and regulating group buildings in the industrial and commercial district. So that's regulated under site plan approval, regardless if we allow group buildings, they have to come back for site plan approval. So, I don't know,
Not regulated.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but we have to come to us for approval. But I don't think we need regulations. I think what we're talking about are non-farm-based ag and residential properties that want to put up coupons for bees or farmers can put it up for environments. They don't need our permission. So we're talking about this. I got 14 cars. I want to store in my home. That kind of thing. I got my farm implements. I got too much room. Don't have enough room in my garage. I got one car.
Steve, let me ask you a quick question on coming back to the commercial thing. If somebody comes before us with a site plan and it has spelled out a group building on that site plan, what do we refer to, whether or not we allow it and we don't? I mean, do we need some guidelines there when we're doing a site plan review if that site plan contains a hoop structure?
We just want to make sure it meets setbacks.
Okay.
And that it's constructed according to, it meets manufacturer's specs and fire on that, and it have a permanent foundation. That's what we do right now.
Okay. So we would just take the 200 square feet, just take it out. Right, for commercial? No, for the residential, for the small We really need that.
We need to make that about that.
It should be 200 feet,
Right now.
What?
That's in the code book right now.
200 square
This
feet.
is, that's what the code book,
It's in the Michigan building.
yeah, 200 feet or less. You don't need a permit for it, you just meet the setbacks.
So if we just concentrate on what you're saying, with larger buildings, we probably, from Jerry's point, maybe solve the problem right now.
Really think what we've come up with solves most of your issues right now.
Printed it just exactly like it.
My suggestion is to go with this, and if there's any, I mean, with some minor modifications, you want to change to 200, although that is code. I mean, but if it's, let's try this, and if there's any changes needed long-term, we find out there's some problems, we can come back and fix it.
Are we putting ourselves in any risk with the fact that all these other municipalities have repealed these ordinances?
Well, the other communities, the ones that I work for, just treat them as accessory structures. We don't care if they're roof buildings or pole barns, whatever, you need to vote. They just don't want to deal with.
Okay. Roland?
But I'm just looking for answers here. I mean, if we can run with them and go according to code, so be it. I don't know.
So then, I guess,
But they,
before we maybe make a motion on this, do we leave it, again, do we leave the 200 square foot in now? Or, yeah,
And stay
leave it there? Yep.
Mhm. And we changed B to say, as you had mentioned before, Keith, was, is built according to manufacturer's recommendations in all applicable township building codes.
Yeah, I think that should be okay,
Yeah.
so to speak. Give this a little more teeth, and maybe helps our building inspector down here.
as long as it meets the residential code. I don't know about the factory warranty. Sometimes or the factory recommendations, sometimes. I see what's out there in the code, you know? Yeah.
They would still try to get a rest.
And a question. So I buy a 10 by 18 building. I put it for my house.
No.
No, we're just.
Why?
Accessory buildings are allowed.
It's not under your thing, it's 108 feet.
It's an accessory structure. It's not a roof building, it's still an accessory structure. Can't be in front of your house.
That's what we're putting in.
200 feet.
You're saying if it's less
I'm
than
going
200 feet?
10 by 18, it's 108.
Definitely spot in front of your house.
Nothing's wrong.
Real structure.
I know. Yeah. Oh, that's what we want. Okay, perfect. All right. Is there a motion?
If you decide to go with this, I would suggest that you, schedule this for a public hearing at your April meeting.
Okay.
Unless you want to review it one more time.
No, I think we cleaned it up pretty good. Yeah. But I'd like to get a motion, Steve, tonight, for the public to see that we push forward on this. Is there a motion for the support of changing the accessory building section 65 to what presented to us by Karen and Steve?
Do we need to make the changes before the motion is made, the verbiage changes?
With the suggested changes of all to be all township applicable codes. Yep. So the motion should. So the motion should state, if you decide, you make it, that you recommend the changing to the zoning ordinance, section I, regarding accessory structure buildings, and to revise subsection B to add and to all applicable public township.
Not to be overly redundant, but the fact that the hoop building is covered under site plan review for commercial industrial would still be permitted, even though this says such structures are only be permitted in these districts.
Yes.
That doesn't apply to commercial industrial districts.
Why don't we just strike that then?
Strike that?
Okay. Yeah, it could be construed like you do as a problem.
Okay. Now make the motion, John.
All right, I'll make a motion to add the hoop building verbiage, section I, to the accessory structure ordinance with the deletion of subsection A and the additional verbiage of building permits added to subsection B in section 65.
Thank you, John. Is there a second to that motion? Second. Jerry, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Roland. Appreciate it.
Chairman, would you schedule a public hearing now?
Yes. Thank you, Steve. To do this in April, right? April
Right,
meeting.
timing of the voice newspaper, public for getting in.
Yeah. We'll get a motion on that too, folks. Scheduled for a public hearing in April, the next meeting.
Can I make a motion to schedule a public hearing for the April township planning meeting to open up to the public the addition of hoop building verbiage to section 65 of the accessory building.
Thank you, John. Is there a second to that motion?
Second that motion.
Sue, thank you. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carried.
Yeah, one question, who seconded John's motion on the first one?
Yes, Jerry.
Okay, okay, good deal, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. You're still pretty sharp over there, you know that? Gotta keep you around, right? Okay, thanks, folks. This has been good. This is good stuff. All right, the next item under our unfinished business is the revised site plan for ZLM Services.
Yeah, he's got to recuse himself.
Yeah. Very good. Steve, can you give us a little background on this, please?
The request is to move the dumpster location. It was closer to the building. To the east side of the we're recommending.
Okay, you see the petitioner in the audience? Your name it. I had to do it. Go ahead, John, give us a little background.
I think Mr. Captain hit it on the head. With the original site plan, the dumpster location was approved on the northeast corner of the building. After construction was completed, due to several factors, we decided that it's better to relocate the dumpster to the north property line. Works better for the garbage company that services the dumpsters. Overall better location. We're just asking for a revision to be approved on the original site plan.
Okay. Thank you, John. Planners, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions? John, just a couple of the dumpster is going to be under the same specifications as the original.
Correct. Everything is the same.
You just physically.
Physical location.
Correct. We talked to the building inspector. He was a nice guy that day and he said this.
We did. Right.
All right. We are at the point where we can make a motion on this.
I make a motion to approve the revised site plan review for sale and services. You don't have a date on this. Is there a date on this?
Well, let me interrupt you for 1 second. John, you and I talked about this a little bit, and what we're trying to do is get our file system so that we have the latest and greatest site plan in the file. Anybody. Correct. So when this change is made, and we have the architect change it, engineer, whomever, please add a date, and that it was approved by the planning commission. And then it's about it. And we get your copy of the hearing.
Good date, but I make a
You
motion
can
to
set the date, receipt, 09 for your motion.
date received like today.
There's a date on the top of it. You can see it.
I'll make a motion to vote or to approve the revised site plan review February 9th, 2023 for sale and
Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Gina. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, carried. Thanks, John.
Thank you, board.
Okay, new business. We will jump into the master plan. We've had some discussion with that before. Steve, can you, give us a little,
Yeah, I think it's ready. We're ready in the master plan process. Ready. We've got, final presentation. Morning. So I think it's time to begin the process. I think the formal process would begin with the planning commission requesting authorization from the township board to fund and solicit a bid. Hopefully for myself. Is it master plan? And we do have a bit prepared that we, getting this motion tonight, we will be sending it to the town.
excellent. Very good. Does that answer your question to some degree tonight, what you brought up?
Yeah, I was just trying to learn the process, how this all works, so when we're gonna keep coming across similar situations that we have today as the population goes up and everything, and just trying to stay on the right side.
It's fluid, and it has to be. So, but we haven't really changed the master plan in a long time. You know, even in the corridor area, that has been zoned industrial long life.
Yeah, what surprised me is when they unveiled this study, their idea study almost matched the current master plans of the 4 townships involved verbatim. So,
When was the standing master plan adopted?
What was that question, Jack?
When was the standing master plan adopted?
I'd have to look for it. It's probably at least 15 years ago.
Just curious.
Well, it's been re-adopted every 5 years.
Right.
Certain. I think their last written one. So it was even before Gilbert left.
yeah, it was, yeah, Rod Arroyo was a part of that. I think it was, under his old firm. Yeah, yeah, I think it,
10, 15 years ago.
yeah, at least about 15 years ago. Mhm. Yeah, roughly about that time.
Did he retire?
No, as far as I know, he works for Giffords Webster's.
So Dave, person?
No,
Rod?
Rod.
Rod retired.
Oh, Rod retired. Okay.
We will get a copy of the master plan, but
We're gonna put it up there.
As part of the whole thing?
Yeah.
up there.
Well, we will. I gotta get someone to build a,
Is it available electronic?
it is. If you go to, I'll show you after the meeting.
And if you look at, because I was the same as you, I was extremely surprised at the very first meeting with the church, when those developers for the 26 project, they had the existing, and then they had theirs, and everybody was looking at these, and all of a sudden, and then I'm like, look for the next page. The second page matched the master plan so closely that had already been in effect for years. There wasn't a radical difference from what a lot of these townships already had
Yeah.
on their books.
And they made a
It's
comment,
just when you put it out there that, wow, this
they made a comment that both Casco and Ira has more than enough, industrial space. Zone
yeah, they said
industrial
right out, they
space.
don't see it going.
No.
Too much further than we already have
I think one of the issues.
in the near future.
I think one of the issues a lot of people have with that corridor study that was presented by the Economic Development, St. Clair County Economic Development, is it addresses the different zoned areas, but it also addresses what they're gonna do with the road, traffic, sidewalks, lights, all that kind of stuff. And I think those things are not on the future plan, correct? Like, it doesn't show widening of 26 mile road on the map. It just shows
The TRE.
potential or the zone
TI?
district.
Yeah.
Property, yeah.
And the infrastructure.
I'll show you.
But I did like the idea when they were talking at that meeting of having, and maybe it's not that we're with all the districts are special in their own way, but if there's gonna be any industrial down the district, which there will be on our side or all the way down, there'll be certain spots, to have some of the rulings that you have for those districts, because right now we're all over the board. Like when the townships get together and say, okay, if we're gonna have a setback, if that setback matches from here to there to Ira, all the way down, when you do have it, it's going to make everything look better compared to having, Ira has these sort of rules where maybe you can only have to be, your building may only be 10 feet off 26. But on our side, our buildings are way back with berm, and it is appealing, like, to why not pick the townships that have the best ordinances, whichever ones, duplicate them along the district. So if it does grow in 10, 20, 50 years, it creates a better cohesive look. And it would keep some of the mishmash just looking neater. So it, because people were saying, well, it's gonna be like 23. If you do this now, it won't look like 23. That's what happened on 23, is they had no rules, stuff just got pieced together compared to having any type of a plan all the way down. And chances are, well, not most of us in this room are gonna see that.
But I got a form on those.
Sections of it, but you'll see sections of it.
Land.
Yeah.
In front of your guys' side, it's all the same all the way down that I read.
Yeah, that's the
You can see it
difference,
all.
that's the difference. It's
Wait, what-
stopping from getting work as it
Well,
goes.
you gotta keep in mind too, how many buildings are built a long time ago? You
Yeah.
know, when 26 is probably your.
But if you
No, I drive
change the
up down
rules
all the
now, the future buildings won't be like that. You know, just make the changes now to adapt where lighting and all that stays somewhat cohesive would be nice.
Good discussion, folks. Steve, on the master plan, and after we get the contracts, we be able to get it.
This is a one-year process, and the proposal was submitted. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments, questions on the master? Comfortable? I'm sorry, no.
Like, motion, make the motion.
Yes.
I'm in motion to authorize the Casco Township Master Plan process.
A second. There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Good stuff. Thank you. The next order of business, for new business is the election of planning commission officers. So we need a motion to open the elections.
I'll make a motion.
There is a second to that. Okay, thank you. So for chairperson, We have a nomination for chairperson.
I nominate Keith Elto as chairperson.
Do it, and believe me, folks, trust me when I say this, it's a great experience. If, seriously, if you would like to do this, there's nothing special about me, that's for sure. Please put your name in. You will enjoy it. Did I do that right there?
Yeah.
So good. I would, any else want to disrupt.
For sure.
It isn't big.
All right, are there any other motions for president? Is there a motion to close nomination?
Make a motion to close the nomination for chairperson.
All those in favor, I need a second, sorry.
I'll second that.
Thanks, Jerry. There's a motion and a second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. I'm gonna carry this through, and there's a reason for that, so bear with me. Our next item will be vice chairman. Are there nominations for vice chairman?
Sure. I'll nominate Jim Edwards for vice chairman.
Thank you, John. Is there a second to that motion? There's a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. For secretary. Oh, yes.
You know, someone's not here.
Can we call him to put him on speakerphone?
Joe, we have a.
Yeah, I talked to Dan about it, and he says he'd be willing to do it unless someone else would like to, I mean, the part of the thing we're supposed to, other than getting out the meeting package, you're supposed to work with the chairperson and the supervisor of putting together the agenda, stuff like that. So it's a lot of work. In the case if the recording secretary cannot be here, they have to fill in. Hopefully we'll have that solved here with Zoom recording it. But, yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. You learn a lot being the secretary of the planning commission as well.
Thanks, Joe. Sure, why not? Yes, I think we can. Go ahead, Sue.
Nominate Dan. Yeah, as secretary of the planning commission.
Thank you, Sue. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second to nominate Dan for secretary. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I jumped over.
Excuse me, who second,
Should be asked. I did.
okay, John, thanks, John.
Okay, representative to the zoning board of appeals.
I recommend Jerry Keller as
There's a motion and a second to nominate Jerry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, there's something that we can do instead of going all the way through. It's called acclamation. And what it basically is the election of officials by unanimous consent. So if you so decide to do that, any of you, in your motion, if you could acknowledge that by unanimous consent, that we would be voting for myself, Jim, Dan, and Jerry. Yeah, more.
You have Dan's not here.
Pardon me?
You have Dan's not here. We still vote.
It's a good question. And I said, let's.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, Dan had no objections of serving again, so.
So you use Joe's name?
Yeah.
It's called the unanimous consent motion. And the word for it is acclamations. So it's called unanimous consent motion for chairperson, vice chairman, secretary, and rep for zoning board. Yes.
So I make a unanimous consent motion to accept Keith Casco as chairperson, Jim Edwards as vice chairman, Dan as secretary, Jerry Keller as representative to the zoning board of appeals.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Thank you, folks. Planners report. Karen, Steve?
Don't we have anything to say?
So I was going to mention the meeting, East China Township is at 10 a.m. on Friday. So then, sitting here waiting for our review today when you came in, must have given to me. Looks like you have a crematorium that wants to come in on Gratiot.
Is that the addition to the?
Yeah, in addition to the crematorium.
Yeah, you're doing a good business.
Must be. There's some issues that we identified just by looking at it, but that'll probably be on your next agenda.
Thank you, Steve.
Get your cops, we're gonna speak.
Where is that at?
Is there a crematorium there?
Next to where?
Next to speak.
Yep.
Speedway.
Still rich for glass.
Yeah.
Yep, I already forgot.
Yeah, they came several years ago when they, after Rickard's Glass pulled out of there, there's a couple other businesses, and then they bought it, and the site plan process was fine. It's regulated by the state, and most people don't know what goes on there. You know, it's very discreet and like I said, they come in for an addition and, you know, so.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Anything else? You okay? Thank you. Report from committees.
This time goes.
All right. Anything else?
That representative,
You have a meeting in April. Okay, good. Excellent.
All right. Anything else for the planning commission before we ask for adjournment? Well, thank you very much, folks. It's been a good meeting. We got a lot accomplished tonight. And I just want to say thank you to Jim for laughing. Boy, that probably really took me down for a few weeks. Pardon me? Yeah, I sure did. Nasty. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate it. And thanks to all of you. What was this? What you have done. Oh, I'm sorry. Jody, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I'll get, there's that, Steve, from your first view of that won't be an issue for Jeremy's trucking for something like that, for them to have a.
Should be.
Okay. These will not be permanently mounted, and like Keith suggested earlier, we're discussing this, that have them sign a letter saying, hey, once their arrangement with that shed manufacturer is complete, that those will be removed. See, Jeremy, for Planning Commission, Jeremy's Automotive there on Gratiot, there's a person who wants a firm that wants to display a little garage or carports there, just in where their area where they sell cars at. It's automotive related, and I'm going to have them sign a letter say, hey, once your arrangement's done, they're gone. Yeah, so.
Joe, I got, when I spoke with you, briefly this morning, Steve, I've got just a few concerns, that we should look at. Just on it. And the question I had for you is, what part of it is only going to actually house? I mean, I looked at it and first, there's out of my mouth, it's just kind of a large sign. Or is it, is it really good? Or is it really good?
It's probably more closer to that display area. We can prove that.
Yeah.
that ordinance? Play it right.
Does that make sense to you, what we were talking about there? I mean, I just, building and, right, there's a building, exactly where we originally go. So, okay, that makes me feel better. Thank you. Thanks, folks, I think we're ready for the adjournment. There's a motion and a second on this end of the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Okay, who made the motion?
Gary made the motion, and Joe, thanks for all your hard work tonight. Appreciate it. Thanks, Rollins. Very well. Thanks, all folks that out there.
You want to-
Appreciate it. Thank you for coming
Yeah.
again and see us, okay?